afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa McAdin. I'm the Executive Director of the State Public Charter School Authority. Thank you for joining us for our open meeting law training. And with me today, I have Samantha King-Powell. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha King-Powell. I'm General Counsel for the SPCSA.
All right. At the conclusion of these meetings, we will share out not only the slides, but we will have a frequently asked question document to supplement, and we will also have the recording available on our website so that as you get new members on your boards, it is available for them to complete their training as required. Today, our outcomes are to educate school leaders and their boards on the requirements of the Nevada open meeting law. We're going to talk about what needs to happen prior to public meetings, what needs to happen during public meetings, what needs to happen after public meetings. We'll also get into exceptions to the open meeting law, board retreats, subcommittees, the requirements for board members, and violations of open meeting law. All right, first off, open meeting law prior to public meetings.
The first thing that you have to contend with as far as open meeting law is concerned is drafting the agenda. The agenda should have the following as part of the agenda: time, place, and location of the meeting, all of which must be reasonable. Name and contact information from whom the agenda and supporting materials can be obtained. Reasonable accommodations to assist and accommodate those with disabilities. Any time limits on public comment, the only time limit allowed is a 3-minute time limit. You cannot limit public comment outside of that three-minute mark. You cannot have people sign up in advance of the meeting. Agenda items must be clear and complete. Anyone reading the agenda should be able to understand precisely what will be discussed. And you must indicate if items are for action or for discussion and information only. A sample agenda can be found on pages 100 through 102 of the Open Meeting Law Manual.
All right, let's talk about supporting materials. You have to have supporting materials for your board to look at. Your board cannot approve policies, they can't approve budgets, they can't approve student data unless there are supporting materials for them to look at. Supporting materials must be made available to the public when they are made available to the board. That does not mean 3 days prior. We understand sometimes those documents don't become available until the day of. That's okay. It's just as long as you make them available to the public at the same time the board gets them, whenever that is. Supporting materials should remain on the school's website for 3 years. If the meeting is virtual only, the supporting materials must be available online when made available to the board. We know many of our schools have moved to virtual only meetings, so please ensure that your supporting materials are online. If supporting materials are made available at the time of the meeting, they must be uploaded to the school's website within 24 hours. We certainly understand that sometimes that happens. Please just make sure those get uploaded within 24 hours.
Meetings must be noticed. Notices must be posted by 9 a.m. 3 working days prior to the meeting. If you miss that deadline, you have to reschedule. If you post it, 9:10, 9:20, it has to be rescheduled. That's a hard and fast deadline. Holidays do not count, so don't forget about holidays when you're counting back those 3 business days. For hybrid meetings, meaning virtual and in person, they must be posted at the meeting location, on the school's website, and at Notice Nevada. For virtual only meetings, the notice must be posted on the school's website and at Notice Nevada. In-person only meetings must be posted at the meeting location, on the school's website, and at Notice Nevada. Make sure you get all of those notice locations depending on which meeting you're having.
All right, let's talk about clear and complete agenda items. First, let's look and see how these measures up. These are examples that we have commonly seen on our school's agendas. Something like principal's report, information and discussion. That really doesn't necessarily tell the public what you're going to be talking about. A better example would be principal's report to include upcoming school events, spring winter maps testing results, upcoming hiring fairs, and the enrollment window, which closes February 1st. A member of the public can read the agenda and understand what you're going to be talking about. Another one we often see is, Jane Doe presentation. What is Jane Doe presenting about? Is she presenting student data? Is she presenting something about sports? Is she presenting a fundraising idea? Who knows? So a better example is Jane Doe from Data Extraordinaire will present winter maps data for grades K through 8, information and discussion. Another really common one we just see is financial reports or monthly financial reports. A better example would be the board will review monthly expenditure reports, budgets to actuals, and 12-month cash flows, information and discussion. Or the board will review and adopt the fiscal year 26 final budget in accordance with NAC 387.715 and NAC 387.725, information, discussion, and possible action. Here, the public can clearly see that the board will actually be taking action on this agenda item. Now we're going to hop into open meeting law during a public meeting.
Copy of supporting.
Sorry, Sam. I got mixed up there. Sorry about that. So a copy of supporting materials, at least one copy of the agenda and supporting materials must be made available at the physical location. If the meeting is virtual, supporting materials must be available online. Sorry about that, Sam.
That's okay. Public comment. We spoke a little bit about this earlier, but let's dive in a little more. Public comment must be available at both the beginning and the end of the meeting or after each action item. If you allow public comment after each action item, you must have public comment at the end of the meeting devoted to non-agenda items. So time limits again, 3 minutes are the only ways you can restrict a time limit. And if you have a contentious matter, you should ask your legal counsel to be there to help you follow open meeting law during the meeting.
All right, recordings and transcripts. The public meeting must be recorded by video, audio, or transcribed. All three are acceptable, but it absolutely must be done. The meeting must be reasonable. It must be accessible to the public. It must be made it must be able to accommodate anticipated attendance. Certainly, if you know you're having a big contentious meeting, you can't schedule your public meeting in an office where 10 people fit in it. It must be able to provide reasonable accommodations for individuals who might need those. Think wheelchair ramps, think that sort of thing. And most importantly, stick to the agenda. This is the number one mistake that people make. And I will tell you, it's never nefarious. It's never premeditated, right? But what happens is we get dedicated board members who are really passionate. Somebody says something during board discussion, and pretty soon they've gone down a rabbit hole. And they've been talking for 45 minutes about something that wasn't on the agenda. You just have to be really, really careful. And as board members, you can't be afraid to say, hey, hold on, this isn't actually on our agenda. It looks like it's something we all want to talk about, so let's get it on next month's agenda. But right now, it's not on our agenda. As a board member, you have to feel comfortable to help your board chair make sure that happens, because it's very, very easy to go down a rabbit hole. All right, let's talk about open meeting law after a public meeting.
Open meeting law compliance doesn't stop after the meeting is done. You still have to continue on following open meeting law, and that follows with minutes. So minutes must include the date, time, and location of the meeting, the members of the public body that were present and absent, the substance of the discussion by the public body, a record of each member's vote if any items were voted on, the substance of any public comment if there were public comments made. The minutes must be made available to the public within 30 business days, and they must be approved at the next meeting or within 45 days, whichever is later. Finally, you should have either video recordings if you're doing a virtual meeting or transcripts, and those must be made available within 30 days and must be retained for 1 year.
All right, let's talk about exceptions to the open meeting law. It is allowed, you are allowed to have closed sessions in accordance with NRS 241.030. If you are considering having a closed session, you need to work with your legal counsel to make sure you are doing it correctly and under the right circumstances. You can also have emergency meetings. Emergency meetings are unforeseen circumstances of fire, flood, natural disaster, or impairment of the health and safety of the public. Emergency meetings aren't, oh, we forgot to do this or something like that. It truly is like natural disasters. We have had schools that have flooded. That's legit. Those are really the only things that count. You can also have exceptions for attorney-client conferences. Again, you would be working with your legal counsel in those circumstances. And you can also have social gatherings, so long as you are not discussing board business.
So what about board retreats? If the board retreat is being funded in any way with public dollars, you must create an agenda in accordance with open meeting law and create minutes in accordance with open meeting law. If it's purely social, if you're just going on a social retreat, like Melissa stated earlier, and you're not discussing any kind of board business, then it's not required.
All right, let's talk about subcommittees. How should you handle subcommittees? First thing you need to know is that open meeting law does apply. These meetings should have agendas and be open to the public in accordance with OML. Supporting materials must be made available to the public, just like they are for a regular board meeting, and the time and location must be reasonable and able to accommodate the public.
What about minutes? Do subcommittees have to have minutes? And the answer is yes. Minutes should be created in each subcommittee to delineate what the subcommittee discussed and worked on. The subcommittee should determine that the minutes are an accurate reflection of the subcommittee's work, and the minutes must have final approval from the full board. Subcommittees cannot approve their full minutes. What authority do subcommittees have? If a subcommittee has at least an equal number of members who are not on the board, could be staff, teachers, parents, then they can make recommendations to the board. Or if the full board votes to create a subcommittee under the following situations. The subcommittee is created during an open public meeting as part of a specific agenda item for that purpose. So if there's a specific agenda item and the full board wants a subcommittee to work and kind of delve deeper into the specific issue, then the subcommittee can be created for the limited purpose of this specific agenda item. Or the subcommittee is given express authority by the full board to come back to the full board with a recommendation for action. If either of these situations are not true, the subcommittee can present the data or information it has gathered and summarize its work, but it cannot make recommendations.
All right, let's talk about board members. New board members must get fingerprinted and sign the board member disclosure form within 10 days. The first meeting the member participates in begins the count for the 10 days to get fingerprints.
Conflicts. There are 3 types of conflicts you should be aware of as a board member, and these conflicts are first, it does not require disclosure on the public record. And that could be maybe you worked with someone applying for a charter over 10 years ago, have not kept in touch, and you don't know them outside of that limited working capacity over a decade ago. That does not require disclosure on the public record, and it's not a conflict. There's too much time that has passed in between you working with that person and the current work you're doing on the board. The second one requires disclosure, but not abstention. The conflict is such that the voting member can remain impartial. An example here might be a board member serves on a charity board with the member of the school's board. They're not friends, they don't interact outside of their charity work, so that would require disclosure, but not abstention. And the final one requires disclosure and abstention. And a situation might be if you have a significant financial interest or commitment in a private capacity, or if you're a major donor to a property development company that maybe the school is thinking about working with. So you're not directly working with the property development company, but you are an investor in that company, and you should disclose and abstain from the work. If you have a conflict in a private capacity, you do not have to disclose exactly what the conflict is on the record. You can just say, hey, I have a private conflict here. I'm going to abstain from voting. And you don't have to disclose exactly what that is.
Training. Board members are required to take open meeting law and good governance training within 10 days of appointment, and then every 3 years thereafter. You can use the SPCSA training that will be on our website, or a trainer from our approved list.
Code of ethics. So your board member bylaws, handbook, or policy manual must link back to the Ethics in Government Manual and NRS 281A. That is the statute that governs ethics in good governance and board bodies such as yours. Consider also linking back to NAC 281A, which is the administrative code that goes hand in hand with NRS 281A.
All right, let's talk about violations of the open meeting law. Violations can void any action taken at the public meeting or on the offending item. They're enforced by the Attorney General's office. They can result in private lawsuits. They can result in extreme cases and civil and criminal penalties. And they can result in a notice of concern on the SPCSA organizational framework.
So here are some helpful links for making sure that you're following open meeting law appropriately. First one is NRS 241, Nevada's open meeting law statute. We talked about this one just before, Nevada's Ethics in Governments, NRS 281A. There's also a fantastic open meeting law manual. Again, it has the agenda example on pages 100 through 102. There is an open meeting law opinions from the AG's office. Every time they get a complaint, they issue an opinion, and so those opinions might be beneficial to you if you'd like to read them. Additionally, there's a AG open meeting law hotline. If you or your attorney have any kind of issues or complaints that you want to run by the AG's office to make sure you're doing things appropriately, feel free to use these phone numbers.
All right, we thank you guys for attending this training. As I said at the beginning, we have a companion document of frequently asked questions from these trainings that we've conducted, that we've compiled for you for your reference. And as always, please reach out to the hotline or your legal counsel if you have open meeting law questions. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Bye.